Okay, so before I get started on this trailer breakdown, I just wanted to clarify a little bit of what I said for my episode 1 review of American Horror Story 1984 that I felt like a lot of people didn't really understand where I was coming from. First and foremost, I am a huge fan of 1980s slashers, and I love the fact that we're getting an entire season based around that concept. My problem with the episode was just the quickness in which we got to the camp setting for this season. One of the things I was really hoping for this season was a callback to nostalgic 80s sensibilities, and because American Horror Story is 10 or 11 or so episodes every single season, we were going to have multiple hours to play with these characters and that setting before we got to the carnage. I mean, just think about last season and how long they took to develop the warlocks, the witches, and everything surrounding the sequel to the Coven story before they even got to Murder House or even the bunker where we started the entire season. And now that I've looked at it a little bit, I saw your guys' criticism, I understand what you're talking about, and it seems like, at least from what we're seeing with this new trailer and what we know from the titles of every episode, maybe like past seasons in American Horror Story, after the 5th episode, everything is going to be shooken up, rebooted. We're going to dive into more of that 80s nostalgia, or maybe go back and explain everything else that is going on. In fact, now that I'm saying it out loud, I think that is what's going to happen, and I'm crossing my fingers. I mean, how cool is it going to be if this cast of characters and everything with the camp is shored up by the end of the 5th episode, and then the last part of the season, we get to explore 1984 in American Horror Story and more of the ramifications of everything that happened in a single night during a slasher event on this reopened camp. To me, that would be really interesting, kind of experiencing what happens at the very end of a slasher film over the course of the last part of the season and how it affects these characters, maybe even doing flash forwards into the future or present day where it connects to other seasons, or maybe even Apocalypse or whatever they're really trying to build up. To me, that would be really interesting, and it's something I would really like to see going forward in this season. Okay, getting started with what we're seeing in this trailer for the next couple episodes.
This season on American Horror Story 1984.
First and foremost, we got the hitchhiker who ran off. Obviously, that car looks like he's being hit by Mr. Jingles as he's approaching, or maybe it's even the Night Stalker. I can't remember right off the top of my head what type of car the Night Stalker was driving, and we don't really even get to see it that much in this video.
This season on American Horror Story 1984.
But dealing with the next couple scenes that we actually see, we see the car going into the camp, and then we see Mr. Jingles, and then we hear directly that Mr. Jingles is being referenced. So yeah, I'm going to have to go ahead and say that Mr. Jingles is going to make his way to the camp, just as they teased at the end of the last episode.
The psychopath who committed mass murder is on the loose. He has an obsession with you.
Camp Redwood will open as scheduled.
So this shot to me is pretty interesting. One of the comments I got on my last video from Marissa Johnson said that maybe it's Margaret who committed the murders back in 1970, and she framed Mr. Jingles, and that's one of the reasons he got out of the psychiatric hospital, is because he knew that she was opening the camp up again. I mean, somehow. If that's the case, they're going to have to go back and explain the dang thing, but it is really interesting, and it would be, kind of a cool twist. So maybe that's the case. We're just gonna have to wait and see. So one of the next things that we see in the trailer is Brooke sitting by herself near the lake when we see a body. Of course, I don't really know who this body is. I mean, just looking at it straight up. If you guys do, tell me in the comments section, because I've looked at it for a while and I just do not understand what's going on. The more interesting thing here is we see later on in the trailer, and it's just a brief glimpse, but I'll play it right now, is the Night Stalker attacking her in what seems to be the exact same situation. So I'm very interested to see how they're playing around with this and when this is actually going to take place. Is this all in her mind, or is this something that's going to happen to escalate the show quicker than what we thought was going to happen from the first episode? Another quick interesting thing, I'll show it again. You guys see that she's being stalked by the Night Stalker and Mr. Jingles with the same outfit on. So I'm not really entirely sure what they're doing there, but I do think it's interesting and worth pointing out.
She has got to get laid.
The next couple scenes that we see here are just shots of these kids being, just kids in the slasher genre. I mean, they're getting down and dirty, drinking, having sex, all this other stuff that, we expected to see in this season. I hope they have a lot of fun with that. I mean, I wouldn't even be mad if the next episode, because these clips, I imagine, are from the next couple episodes, at least the first 2 or 3 episodes before this, before everything really starts to get underway and we understand what the story is all about, but it's just kind of the trailer shots. The next episode should just be all this. Just have fun, allow us to laugh a little bit and get to know these characters a little bit more than what we did in the first episode. In fact, I'm going to stick by that. If the next episode is just them having fun and just a couple of scares here and there as they build the tension further, that's going to make for a fantastic episode.
Hello?
And of course, the last thing we're going to talk about here is that brief montage that we got to see of everyone being tortured around the camp in what looks like the exact same night. And while I really would like for a lot of these characters to live, as I said before earlier on in this video, the idea of all of them just kind of being killed off. We have the last girl with Brooke, and then we get to see her continuation after all of this stuff in the camp. Kind of like what we got to see at the very beginning of Friday the 13th Part 2, where the final girl goes home. Jason has followed her back to her home somewhere, and that he kills her, and then we're just back at the camp. I mean, I always kind of felt like that was a big disappointment in terms of being a horror movie lover, just getting rid of characters as soon as they become unnecessary to the story or they don't know how to use them again. Because after the events of the first Friday the 13th, there's no way that she is going to go back to that camp. You just need to figure out a way to take her out and never really bring her back anymore. This happened all the time in the 80s, and if this show, considering it's not called Camp Blood, Summer Camp, or whatever that is, maybe not the entire show is going to take place at the camp. We're going to get the first half at the camp. It feels like a slasher film, and then they're going to use flash forwards and everything else in the handbook of American Horror Story to tell a much broader story in the last 5 episodes, completely reboot the entire concept, and we're going to have something a little bit more interesting than just trying to relive or see all the different horror movie tropes as we follow these characters who survived this night. Now, who is going to die, who's not going to die, I cannot tell you. In fact, to me, it really looks like Cody Fern is going to die. He says all of us are going to die. We get to see him in a very perilous situation in the trailer, and I really don't hope that's the case, but I mean, who really knows how they're going to shake this up? If I had to choose, because as I said in my review, we're working with kind of the lower tier American Horror Story cast, even though it has been good thus far, I really hope they don't kill off Emma Roberts, Billy Lord, or Cody Fern, because I've always loved to see them in this show, and I feel like they should continue at least through the end of the season. Of course, at this point, I have no idea. I want to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions about this in the comment section below. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload, and tell me what you think about this season or the upcoming episodes. It's been real.